Welcome to our series, A3 Storyboards, Tips and Tricks. The purpose of the series is to provide clarity to the purpose and practice of A3 Storyboards. I was first taught storyboards in the mid-1980s when I was learning about the various quality management principles and tools of Dr. W. Edwards Deming. I was pleased to see that people, particularly those practicing lean enterprise concepts, became familiar with what is now called A3s beginning in the mid-2000s. However, as can happen with any tool, there can be improper practice in its use. I personally have come across frequent improper practice, which often results in negative experiences for the people who are using A3 storyboards. My hope is that this series will help to correct those practices. Let's start with a little history. Deming's quality improvement storyboards were first used in Japan by a company named Komatsu, which, by the way, won the Deming Prize in the 1970s. In the United States, it was Florida Power and Light, an early adopter of Deming's principles, who first used storyboards in the 1970s. Interestingly, Florida Power and Light was the first company to win the Deming Prize outside of Japan. Florida Power and Light was held up as a shining example of an organization practicing and succeeding with quality management principles when I began to learn about them while at GE in the early 1980s. The term A3 comes from Toyota. It refers to the size of the paper on which storyboards are displayed. An 11 by 17 inch piece of paper, or approximately 11 by 17 inch. Up to this point, the storyboards were not confined to a single piece of paper, though succinct storytelling always was a part of the process. The stories were often told over 6 panels or pieces of paper that reflected Deming's PDCA process. We would lay those out on cardboard and later flip chart paper. Based on what colleagues who have worked at Toyota in the past have told me, the A3 size paper was the largest sheet that could be printed on a copier at that time. As I will repeat later, it is not about the size of the paper, but rather the process of creating the storyboard. Now, why use A3 storyboards? They have proven to be very effective to help people develop the skills and mindsets for problem solving and process improvement. They can also be used by the problem solver or process improver, who I will refer to throughout the series as the author, to have a dialogue with others in the organization, people who will, at some time, be involved in the effort or at least need to support it. They are very effective as a communication device. With practice, you can get anyone up to speed on any story, a process improvement effort, even the strategy of an entire organization in 10 to 15 minutes by use of storyboards. A dialogue between the author of the storyboard and members of the organization should be occurring throughout the process, starting from the very beginning. Through the dialogue, the author can be sure that they are involving the appropriate people in the effort, that they are working on efforts that are important to the organization, that they are being fact and data based throughout the effort, and that they have clear statement or statements of the problem or problems they are addressing. As the effort progresses, the dialogue moves to the identification of possible root causes of problems or obstacles to an improvement effort. Then on to solutions or countermeasures and the means by which the author will assess the effectiveness of any changes made. The dialogue continues even after changes have been made. How will the author be sure that proven changes are sustained over time? And at the end of the process, with whom in the organization should the author share the storyboard? Through the dialogue, the author will receive valuable input from others in the organization, as well as receive coaching on the A3 storyboard process itself, which is a form of Deming's Plan, Do, Check, Act, or PDCA. I'm taking some time to discuss the importance of the dialogue because I have found that understanding this part of the process is often lacking. People using A3s will wait until the effort is nearly complete before they fill out the A3 and share it with others. A sort of fill in the boxes type of approach. Other times they aren't even aware that they should be sharing the storyboard at all. Now people need to see the dialogue in the spirit it is intended. That is, learning and succeeding together. The author should take the feedback and suggestions received in a positive way, as coaching, and in the spirit of we are in this together. The A3 storyboard process closely mirrors Deming's PDCA process. To better ensure success, proper practice of PDCA must be followed. I have seen wide variation in the practice of PDCA. Some people, or even entire organizations, just do plan and never affect real changes in its processes. More commonly, I have seen plan do. Changes are indeed made, but not adequately checked. Changes are implemented, assumptions made that they are effective, and people move on to the next problem or process. Later, it is discovered that performance hasn't changed, or worse yet, new problems are created. There are several other scenarios as well. The point being, we must adequately practice each stage of the PDCA process if we hope to be truly successful in our problem-solving and process improvement efforts. A very important tip is to understand that there is no standard format. I have often found when interacting with organizations on the topic of A3s, a belief that there must be a standard format that everyone must follow. This is just plain incorrect. The format must be adapted to the nature of the story being told. Is the story about an existing problem, a process improvement effort, a strategy of a business, a proposal? Certainly, the format must be altered somewhat based on the nature of the story. In addition, there can be adaptations based on the starting point of the story. For some efforts, a clear statement of the problem is known at the very beginning of the effort, perhaps through an existing data gathering system. Additional information will still be needed to grasp current conditions, but the problem is clearly defined from the very beginning. Other times, the goal is known at the beginning of the effort, while still other times it is defined once current conditions have been understood. The point is, the template used must be adapted so that it reflects the actual process being followed. We will now look at 3 possible templates to demonstrate what we are discussing. This first one is commonly used to solve problems. As with all storyboards, they begin in the upper left-hand corner, work their way to the lower left-hand corner. The story picks up again on the upper right-hand corner and works its way down to the lower right-hand corner. In this template, beginning in the upper left-hand corner, a background is provided, followed by information about current conditions. In such cases, it is the data that is gathered in the current conditions that results in a clear definition of the problem. Continuing on the left side, a goal is then set. Since it is a problem-solving storyboard, analysis of root cause or causes would follow. The story picks up on the upper right corner. Here, solutions or countermeasures are identified. Plans to implement them are laid out. The follow-up is in the lower right-hand corner. This is where the means of measuring effectiveness of changes made will be recorded, as well as any follow-up actions to ensure proven changes are sustained over time. As we stated previously, the location of the problem statement and even the goal can vary based on the starting point of the story. This storyboard would be commonly used for a process improvement effort. The background, current conditions, and goal sections remain. However, such efforts do not have problem statements nor root causes. However, they do have obstacles to higher levels of performance. Renaming the analysis section to say obstacles would be wise. The right-hand side is basically the same as a problem-solving template with countermeasures, plan, and follow-up. The third example would be a template used to convey a strategy of an organization. It would require more significant changes to the chapter headings of the storyboard. Terminology such as strategic initiatives, deployment plan, key performance indicators are used in lieu of countermeasures and follow-up. In all cases, the templates follow PDCA. Now, this may all sound like semantics. However, I have met hundreds of people who were struggling with the A3 process and who reached out to me for help. A common source of their difficulty was the template they were instructed to follow, along with the direction to not alter it. After some modest modifications to the template, their confusion was removed. Another issue with the practice of A3s involves legibility. I am often told or asked to review A3s for people, typically every week. Too often, I cannot even read the A3. Authors tend to try to squeeze too much into the template. Charts and flow diagrams are cut and pasted into the template, often at the expense of legibility. Or they try to squeeze too much verbiage into the template. A few tips will help. First, pictures, graphs, and the like are always welcome. A picture is worth 1,000 words, as the expression goes. If they cannot be added to the storyboard and maintain legibility, it is totally acceptable to say, "See attached." In such cases, it is suggested to carry forward to the body of the storyboard any key learnings or conclusions from the attachment. If the reader wants to see the details, they can. Think of the attachments as appendices of a book. I have made mention of this previously, but the storyboard is created one chapter or section at a time. The author is not to wait well into the effort to begin creating the A3. I have seen people wait until they are about to make changes or even after, before they populate the storyboard. In such cases, the author will receive zero benefit from the A3 process with regard to its use as a thinking device, helping to better ensure proper PDCA practice. This point is commonly misunderstood. Another misunderstood point involves revising the contents of sections. The content of each section is subject to revision as the author progresses through the PDCA process and continues the learning. I have seen the title changed well into an effort because the author learned that the story ultimately was not about what they had thought at the beginning. This is totally acceptable. For some reason, some people have been told that once a section has been completed, they cannot go back. This would be incorrect. By creating the A3 one chapter at a time, the author will be able to share it with others to stimulate the aforementioned dialogue. As I previously described, this is a critical part of the A3 storyboard process. Now, A3s do not have to be created for every problem-solving or process improvement effort. I have come across organizations where they have put rules in place that an A3 must be created for every problem or every improvement effort. This would be incorrect. Further, forcing the application of a tool when it is unnecessary will typically result in a negative experience, and people tend to avoid repeating negative experiences, so they will avoid the use of A3s in the future. Given what we have discussed so far, it should be apparent that we do want to apply this powerful methodology for efforts of significance. What makes it significant, you might ask? The complexity of the undertaking, for one. The need to involve multiple parties is another. The time required, yet another consideration. It probably is not needed for a problem-solving effort where the time required to go through the PDCA process is measured in hours or even a few days. This brings episode 1 to a close. To review a few key points. Number 1, A3 storyboards are used to learn and to teach proper PDCA practice. Number 2, another key point is that there is no standard format. It must be adapted to the story being told. Number 3, succinct storytelling is an objective that will only come with practice. Number 4, the storyboard is created one chapter or section at a time and sharing it with others in the organization throughout the process. Finally, there are several improvement methodologies available to the lean practitioner. A3 storyboards is just one. Therefore, we must apply it appropriately. I hope that you found the information provided helpful. Subsequent episodes will cover specific sections of the storyboard with additional tips for each. I hope that you will join us.